Welcome, listeners, to the final day of play for the U18 Orion Slam being hosted at Dundas Valley Golf and Curling Club, not Country Club. Google is leading us astray here. I believe, or no, maybe we're leading Google astray. Who knows what's going on? Anyways, it looks like early on we saw Team Dobson throw their first stone at the tee line here, and it looks like Jacob is really sweeping hard here to hold the line, and it looks like a really nice nose hit here to start off the game by Team Stockton. Joining the broadcast booth today is the ice maker of the Dundas Valley Golf and Curling Club, Rob Matheson.
Nice, thanks for having me there, Ryan.
No problem, Rob. So earlier this morning you were telling me that you might have changed a little bit of the ice on sheet 2.
I didn't do anything to sheet 2. Sheet 2 is exactly the same as it was yesterday.
Okay, well that's great to hear. I think the one thing, the resounding thing I've heard from these curlers is they really enjoy how consistent your ice is.
Well, thank you very much. That means an awful lot coming from these curlers. These curlers are amazing to watch, and it's been a lot of fun for me seeing my ice get played on by some really good players.
Yeah, and just like you say there, Rob, another great hit there from Team Dobson, rolling to the back forefoot. I think, Rob, a part of it is, to be blunt, your ice surface is constructed so well that it brings out the best in these players. The fact that you have a really good amount of curl on both sides, and also the fact that maybe your ice is a little bit release sensitive, that helps the teams that have a little bit more of that experience, maybe a little bit more skill potentially.
Yeah, just a little more finesse. My goal as an ice maker has always been to give you a really consistent surface, give you as much of the ability to make every shot possible, and I want you to have to throw the rock well.
Yeah.
I don't want you to get away with throwing one out and still making the shot.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And we just did a little bit of background research on your maybe ice making apprenticeship. Was it Scott Fisher who taught you how to make ice?
No, actually, my father's an ice maker.
Okay.
I started learning how to make ice when I was like 7 or 8 years old. From there, I did it all the way through high school and college, and when I moved to Burlington, I actually worked for Mike Dales at Burlington for 10 years, and I also worked for Scott Foster at Oakville for 7 years. So.
Oh, okay. So then for the listeners at home, it looks like they got just enough to remove that rock thrown there by the rock in the house by Team Stockton. Rob, for those listening at home, and maybe a little bit of clarity is needed when you're trying to assess what the ice is about. So can you tell them a little bit about how you make the ice and how it's different than just ice on the side of the street or even hockey ice? How does this ice differ?
Well, so the biggest difference between this ice and arena ice, it's all layered, small thin layers all together, and the water is totally pure. It's the cleanest water you can get. You can't even drink it. And then from there, it's a slow process. We build up the layers slowly but surely. Then we paint the surface. Then we put our rings down. And then we level it off at the top. And then it's a lot of scraping and pebbling. The whole goal of curling ice is to get it as flat and as level as possible. Yeah,
and I think that's one thing that these players are benefiting from is, although you say, yes, arena ice, we know there's a little bit of curl, but at Dundas Valley, there's no shortage of movement here, and it throws similarly to what you would see the throws play on arena ice.
Thank you very much. And my goal has always been to give you 3.5 to 4 feet of curl. I want you to play curling shots. I don't want you to run straight up and down the sheet. I want there to be some skill involved in making shots, and that's what's been fantastic about watching these U18 players. Is they've mastered it. They know where to put the ice. They watch the paths. They understand what rocks are doing, and especially on this sheet too. You guys have been totally right. I've been getting about 1.5 feet more curl on the sheet one side, and they picked up on that. And it's fantastic to watch these young athletes be able to understand what rocks are doing and where they're doing in different paths, and it's just been fantastic.
Yeah. No, the shot quality here that we've seen over the course of these 8 total draws that we've streamed for both men and women, it's really good to see how well they execute and how well they kind of see the game, call the strategy, and then make that shot, even if it's a little bit more of a difficult shot. We've seen Team Beauchamp on this sheet make a fantastic run back. We've seen a couple doubles. These athletes have no shortage of skill, to say the least. So just looking back at the game, it looks like the house is empty, but Team Dobson is sitting a zone 3 tight corner guard on the sheet one side, and I like to hear that communication on the ice. You hear Jacob passing down to his team, yes, this is the straight side, is what they said. But the way that Sam and I have been previously commenting about it is, it's not straight. It's just straight turn. Yep. Exactly. And I think it's good to see that this young team kind of notices that and is up to communicating it.
This is going to be a hard sweep. He's got to try and get this by. Audible's going for the tap.
Yeah. I don't mind that shot. I don't mind that at all.
Yeah,
and especially just talking about the difference in ice. So now, forcing Team Stockton, I believe that's Jacob throwing. Maybe it's Mika. It is Mika or Micah. Anyways, Micah, thank you. And it looks, interestingly enough, instead of throwing that more swingier side, we see the inside-out shot here. Just looking for a board weight, control weight hit, maybe a little flop under the center guard. Jacob is sweeping as hard as he can to hold that stone as straight as possible.
A good 10-second hit.
Yeah, I really like that kind of hit weight on your ice, Rob. I've played on it before, and we've been watching it all weekend, and I like that kind of 10-second, 10.5-second hog-to-hog hit. So from the release point, the first hog line, all the way to the first point of play where the rocks are being positioned, as we see at that black line there.
It really gives the rock a chance to do a little bit of movement, but it gives you more control over where you're trying to go with your roll or where you're trying to hit rocks, and that's what I really like about it as well.
Yeah, and I think I just heard I think Elias was throwing about a controlled weight hit there. It's running pretty good for them. I believe it's almost a nose hit. And it looks like it grabbed that corner. So Rob, just speaking to how you here at Dundas Valley Golf and Curling Club, do you paint the rings? Is it a stencil? What do you see?
We actually use a product from Jet Ice. It's ring decals.
Okay.
So they're all actually designed on the computer and then printed by a printer. They're a thin mesh material that we lay down and freeze into the ice. It's just given a lot more chances for revenue and bringing in other sponsors and really like being able to call out our ice surface. I still have on sheet 5 and sheet 4, I've got some Dundas Valley ones, but on our feature sheet, I've got this big, nice Junior Slam one. So thanks to Junior Slam for purchasing this and giving us the ability to showcase their brand.
Well, yeah, and I think the other thing as well is we haven't had sheet 3 in play here, but I see on both ends of sheet 3 that they have a Team McMaster logo. And for those who might not be as familiar with the area, McMaster University is a university. It's based in Hamilton, Dundas area, Rob?
Yeah, just in Hamilton.
Just in Hamilton, and it's good to see that the university is saying, we really enjoy this ice surface. We want to have a sheet, and they have that sheet. Unfortunately, it's not in play. And while we're on the topic, shout out to the women's curling team from McMaster University. They were the OUA champions.
Yeah, I was pretty proud of them last year. They played really well, and they've actually all been members at my club for the last 4 years. And really worked hard at the sport. I'd also like to throw a shout out to the McMaster men, who played really well at the OUAs at the provincial championships. Came up 4th, but again, I love the McMaster teams, and we also have Mohawk playing here as well this season. There's no actual university or college bonspiels going on, but they're still training for the 2021-2022 season.
Yeah, and I think, Rob, when you see good ice being put in, you see those university teams and other teams in the area really gravitating towards that kind of facility, because especially at that university level, the OUAs is the Ontario University Association Games, so universities from all across the province play down looking for 3 spots to leave Ontario and represent our province and their university in the final. Quickly back to the game here. It looks like Dylan is throwing that inside-out hit. They have Jacob on the sweep, really trying to hold it here. Yeah.
Hard. Get a piece.
A great sweep there by Jacob, and it just speaks to how important it is to get your sweepers involved in these early ends. It's really important to use all members of your team that are out there, especially under the COVID rules. You only have that one sweeper, and maybe if you have the other sweeper on the ice, they're 6 feet behind the individual sweeping. But getting that communication, getting that brushing down, the line calling, and the throw from each player out of the hack is really critical, and it's good to see early on that both teams are doing that, and I'm not surprised to see a little bit of a open end, especially considering this draw is the first elimination draw. So I think we're seeing Dylan come down here looking for a come around draw to the top 4 foot.
And this is just good early in the game to get this draw in here, make them feel comfortable, throwing for an actual point, or are they playing the split there, Ryan?
Yeah, I think they're calling the audible for the tap here, Rob. And I like to see that communication from Elias in the house saying, know what, let's call the audible here. And you don't need to bring it into the house more, because the further you bring it into the house, the more that Team Stockton and Dylan can see of that rock, making the blank attempt a little bit more easy. I think it'll be interesting to see here if Team Stockton takes their point or if they attempt the blank.
They're doing a lot of conversation. I think they're going to throw the draw.
Yeah, and to be quite honest, Rob, I don't mind the draw this early.
Neither do I.
Putting a point on the board, as long as it's not the 8th end when you look at both sides of the board, putting a point on the board is never a bad thing.
No, I think it's great, and I think in this situation, you're looking at either giving up one or taking one. There's no harm, no foul in each one, but it's a great time for him to get his draw weight and feel comfortable with the last rock throw.
No, exactly, and who knows, this could be a path come the 5th or the 7th end where this is a path Team Stockton might need to throw, maybe to score a multiple or really try to save the end for their team. So line's looking good. I love to hear that sort of communication from the Vice saying that line's good here, guys, and they're not panicking, and you love to see that early on in this end. So it looks like one blue for Team Stockton. So it's good to see that Team Stockton took their first point. You love to see those sorts of confident shots here, and it looks like we're fortunate enough to have another end of commentary with the Rob Matheson, the ice maker here at the Dundas Valley Golf and Curling Club. So Do you like how the ice is reacting early on here, Rob?
I do. I really do. It's doing what I want it to do. They're breaking in the pass that they need to do to get the most of the ice.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing from a management of the ice surface for these skips, is to really watch these paths and know where they've thrown and where they haven't. To get ice ready to go, you got to play on every aspect of it, or you got to know where those paths are that you haven't touched yet. So I really feel like they're working in the whole surface, and I can't complain about where my temperatures are at just yet.
Well, that's good. And I think that's actually a really good point, Rob. I think in a couple of the games, we saw the athletes kind of play that sheet 3 side and really work that 6 feet. And what Sam and I were seeing is that the more that they used that side, it seemed like the more similar it became to the sheet 2 side, seeing a little bit more swing, maybe not as fast of a speed that we have been traditionally seeing on that part of the ice.
Well, the big thing that I'm going to pass along to the curlers that are watching this game right now is really watching this game, because if you have a lot of play on the sheet 1 side for this draw, unfortunately this weekend we don't have enough time to scrape after every draw. So the impact of that first draw on the sheet and then that second draw going out onto that sheet, they've worked in that path, and I can't actually add a lot more pebble to add more to that area. So that side of the ice is going to curl more in that second draw if you use a lot of it on the first draw time.
Yeah, so Rob, I just want to clarify for those listening in at home, when you're saying work that path, as we see Micah really sweeping to hold it straight there, it looks like we're going to get a bit of an overcurl, but we see, Sam and I, one thing we've consistently seen is the quality of sweeping. And what do you mean specifically when you're saying working those paths? And
well, as a rock travels over it, you work away at the pebble, and then as people are sweeping, and these sweepers are excellent sweepers, they're actually beating down the pebble as well. And the smaller the pebble gets, the more space it takes up, so it can actually slow down a little bit. The more pebble that is there, it travels better, it grabs better. The surface of these stones allows it to take the curl, and the more they work in an area, the more that area changes slightly.
Oh, okay, I see. And we see Owen here really trying to finish that over behind that really tight yellow guard. And it looks like that's a nice
draw.
Yeah, I like that shot there. And at the end of the day, it's still earlier on in the game. So the guys are still adjusting to maybe what they saw last night might be like just a smidge different here. And it's just good to see that they're making those adjustments and that we're still early on enough and everything seems to be going according to plan for both teams.
Yeah, right. I'm just getting a few times to see what it's running at right now.
So a bit of a tough one there, but Rob, what did you get for that hog-to-hog split?
Hog-to-hog, I got a 13-10.
And that is seconds from the start of one hog to the other?
That is correct.
Okay.
And I like to judge my ice using the hog-to-hog times. It gives me a good base point of what speed it's running at. You saw that they threw that rock through the rings, just overthrew it a little bit. So we're looking closer to, I think, a 14, and that should be right to the lid right now. And I like my ice running around there to start the game. It will break in a little bit more and come up to about a 14 and a half, and that's what it's been running at most of the weekend.
Yeah, and I think it's good to see that sort of speed. Talking with some of the athletes about what the ice surface is doing for them, it seems to be on that little bit of a quicker side, which as a player myself, I do enjoy having that quicker surface, especially when it's curling a lot. So
well, it just gives you a little bit more variance on how you can throw the stone and the different weights you can choose to make different shots. And you don't want to have to really overthrow it And that was something that I learned from Scott Foster and Mike Dales, is you want your ice to be 14, 15 second ice, and it gives the curlers the ability to make shots the best they can.
So I'm hearing Dylan say that he wants Mika to try to, or Micah, pardon me, to really get some movement on that blue stone. Maybe not necessarily the result they were looking for, but it opens up that sort of control zone that Sam and I have been maybe sounding like a bit of a broken record about, but that zone, that kind of from that top 12 foot to top 4 foot area is really a great place to put your stone. So I really like to see Jacob calling Owen for that like zone 3 tight guard top 12 foot stone. And you notice that the broom is being put mid 12 foot, Rob. You like that? You'd like the movement you're seeing out of your ice surface?
I like the movement I'm seeing. I think, to be all honest, I like to have a little less movement on that sheet 2 side.
Okay.
I'd like to see it more edge of 8. That's where I want the curl to be.
Yeah.
And something that after this weekend's over, I'll be playing around with that sheet to try and make it just that touch better.
Yeah, but don't be too hard on yourself here, Rob. I think as many curlers at home as well as those on the ice, I think we prefer maybe a little bit, if you were to err on one side, I think the athletes would prefer that little bit extra curl, and they just have to adjust to it, throw a little bit more of a positive release, a little bit more rotation, and potentially a little bit more weight depending on where they are on that side.
And that makes a lot of sense. My goal really is, I don't want to ever take away curl, but I want both sides of the sheet to be as consistent as possible.
Yes.
And that's where I'm going with that sheet 2 side. I'd really like to see both sides doing the same thing. Yes, I know the athletes have picked up on it really well this weekend, but I'd really like to just see a little bit more consistency on my side.
Well, we love you, Rob, just how you are, so you don't have to change for us.
Thank you very much, Brian.
So that one just looked like it was a little bit heavy out of the hand of the thrower. So I think right now it speaks to something Sam and I were talking earlier about. I love to hear that kind of communication by Team Dobson. The skipper saying, let's put it top 4, but the tolerance is light. If you put another stone, zone 3, maybe even top 12, kind of blocking off that draw for Team Stockton, they're going to have trouble getting in there. And keeping in mind, Team Dobson has hammer here, and both of those yellow rocks are splittable. So we're hearing about a zone 4-5 call.
This looks really good for weight perspective.
Yeah.
Just needs to curl. Oh.
A little deeper than they were looking for, but Team Dobson still has control of that front. So even if Dylan can get Mika to put that kind of frozen into that pocket on the button, I think you're going to see a Team Dobson play on this shot coming here from Micah. We're seeing Cole on the sweep for this one. Oh, they're asking for him to try to curl it over there. Rob, for those listening in at home, what's that difference between the switch or getting it to curl? We've seen many athletes calling for the switch halfway down the ice. What does that do?
It goes back to directional sweeping and how they're trying to warm up the side of the ice that they want the rock to bite more, and giving it an area where it can maybe curl a little bit more. With the broom heads the way they are right now, though, it's really difficult to do. You may get a little bit of extra curl as the rock starts to slow, but they've really done, I can really say that the curling bodies have done a good job in creating this fabric that doesn't allow you really to manipulate the stone as much as you could before.
Okay. So although Team Dobson is still lying 2, Team Stockton has that rock in the control zone we've been talking about. I think you're hearing for a finish. Just a zone 2 guard here.
And that's an excellent curling stone.
Yeah, I think given the position of where you are at the end, understanding Team Stockton only have 2 stones left, it's good to protect a little bit, because you might force Team Stockton into opening it up for you.
Exactly.
So just trying to listen in there to see what the athletes were looking at. And unfortunately the mic wasn't able to pick up anything, but I think you're gonna see Team Stockton either play a run back on that yellow or at least just try to open up that scoring zone so that Dylan has a shot on his second one.
Just to give them some paths and some options. And I think this is a really good way to open some things up and maybe give them a way to get to the forefoot.
Yeah, because keeping in mind here, Team Dobson has 2 stones in that back button area, and Team Stockton is looking, oh, it's looking close.
Close.
Oh, just a little bit of an undersweep there. I think maybe they were trying to get to the center one, Rob, and it didn't come up as much as they were looking for.
And I think Dobson's just going to stay in this protect mode, throwing up another guard in this situation, making it really difficult for Stockton to find a way to get to those rocks on the forefoot. I think is going to go a long way for him. And we'll see where he ends up putting this stone.
Yeah, and as a thrower, although guards are more of a line shot, I actually prefer the curlier side. That might not be what most people would say, but I like that curl side because you know that you can
it's going to move.
Exactly, and you know that you can tend to be a little bit wider, and the sweepers here are so good that you know they can move it over there for you.
Yeah.
So. And I think for Jacob and Team Dobson here, maybe a zone 1, zone 2 guard in front of that blue stone.
Yep, I totally agree. I think giving, just blocking that, as I said, goes back to blocking that path a little bit, forcing another rock that they have to look at when they're about to throw that last rock.
The sweepers are calling about, I believe, a top 12 right now, about a 4. So they're looking for it to come off, maybe a chop off of that stone. Get the audible.
Go.
Ooh.
That's going to work out well for them too.
Yeah, it's one of those instances where they didn't get that A1 shot, but they were able to move that blue stone up enough that it cuts off that raisin by that blue stone. So
what I like to see here is you're going out a little farther than you've ever gone out. I really want to see the skip come down here and talk to the vice and the second in the lead and know what path this is. unfortunately, I don't know if we can hear what they're talking about, but I hope the communication is there.
Yeah, I think we can actually hear the front end discussing a specific time to try to maybe give Dylan a little bit of comfort throwing this.
And that just shows how smart these athletes are and how much communication they know that they need to have with each other. And really a good team shot here.
Yeah, they seem to be. Oh.
Uh-oh.
It seems a little strong here, but the side does move, so we'll have to see. And that shot was a tough shot for Team Stockton. There was really little room for error there.
Yeah.
And especially going out wide into that newer piece of the ice, you hate to see it, but both teams are still guessing a little bit right now going out that wide.
It's still fresh, and that's why working the paths and understanding where you are in the game is really important, especially at this level. Sometimes you're in a situation where you have to guess a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I just really love to hear what Jake said to Elias down there is, let's take max. We don't need to take exactly the same path that Dylan and team tried to throw there. They need to make sure they clear that guard and get a piece of that forefoot for 3 points here. So it's one of those moments in the game where getting that extra point on the board, stretching that lead as far as you can make the difference in the long run. So I'm hearing Matthew call that they're about 6 or 7. For those at home, that'd be about a T-line draw right now. They're really trying to hard. Yeah, they're really trying to go hard and bring that rock into the center line area.
Oh, that's a great sweep.
That's an amazing sweep. That is what we call a team shot, folks. That's getting everyone engaged, and you love to see that early on in this game. So, it's been great to have you here for a couple ends, Rob. I know you're a busy man. Rob loves to spin that pen that we've seen over the past 2 ends here. So it's great to have you, Rob. We appreciate your ice, and thank you so much for joining us for this first start of this game.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope you guys enjoy yourselves, and I'm going to let the pro get back in here, Sam. So thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Now, I know what the viewers at home are thinking is, no, Rob, you don't have to go. We like your insight. Yes, it's great to have both of the curling masters back in commission, but Sam, I really enjoyed seeing what Rob had to say about the ice there.
Absolutely. He's a very knowledgeable ice maker and has a lot of experience, and we enjoy playing here at the Dundas Golf and Curling Club. I like to hear the communication from Jacob Dobson. He's really encouraging this a really big sweep here by Owen.
So just while we have a chance early on, we're going to just do a sheet-by-sheet update. So as the scores are posted, Sheet 1, Team Hastings took 1 point in the first end with hammer, leading Team Mayville 1-0, playing 2, Mayville with hammer. We have a close one here on Sheet 4 and 5. Sheet 4 sees Stratton taking 1 point in the first end with hammer, and both teams decided to blank the second end, so that gives Stratton a 1-0 lead without hammer playing the third end. Finally, on Sheet 5, another close one with Murray and Malima tied 1 point apiece playing the third. Team Murray has that last stone advantage.
So that guard just slipping in for Team Stockton. And I like that Team Dobson, they just took 3 points. They have a 2-point lead, and they're not being too aggressive. They're really deciding to play the hit and roll.
Do you like it? I like this way still.
And I really like hearing the communication of Team Dobson. You know, Jacob is asking Owen in the hack, or Matt in the hack, to what weight he wants to throw. And that's what you like to hear as a team. Is as a skip, you want a comfortableness with the guy in the hack, right? You want him to be comfortable with the weight they're throwing. And this looks like some late movement here. And looks like it came down. I'm pretty sure Jacob wanted control there, and they might have got caught in that little fresh path. And Owen is cleaning the path out there, so they might have thought that grabbed a little bit. And that's probably the farthest they've been out so far. So it tends to do that with a fresh pebble. So for Cole, his job here is to hit granite first, like we've been talking about in our last 8 draws. And this should curl, and there it goes. A double line call here from Elias kneeling down behind the shot. First time we've seen that. And a great hit and roll by Cole.
I still like that.
Big sweep, and it's funny because earlier the Friday and Saturday we've been talking about that spot outside the 12-foot there has been a little straighter, but we've been seeing some movement with that control weight out there. And for Team Stockton, Dylan's asking Jacob to put a nice corner guard up and really protect their points that they have in the house, and I like this call.
Yeah, I think if you're Team Stockton, you're looking at the scoreboard and you're saying rocks aren't hurting us right now, so it's not a bad thing to put some rocks in play, throw up a guard, and protect what you have in the house.
And I like that, though Elias is the second sweeper, the sweeper that isn't sweeping the stone, he's still communicating to Dylan that this rock is heavy.
Yeah.
Oh, Micah's communicating to Dylan that this rock is heavy, and some late finish there, and though it does go into the rings, it is in front of that stone that they wanted to cover.
Yeah, and I think that's the audible there for Team Stockton. I think if I were them, I would rather have it closer to the rings than a zone 1 guard. Sometimes those zone 1 guards are sneaky.
This has to go.
For Owen sitting in the hack here, big shot. We've talked about how important every position is in the sport of curling, and as a second, you really want to focus on making contact here and making it as easy as possible for your skip. And a big sweep here by Matt, and they are going to get rid of one. A little unfortunate where that blue stone rolled, but it did create a little bit of a pocket there that might be Jacob Dobson out later in the end.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Sam, I just wanted to point out, I actually really liked how Jacob communicated there. He's screaming the word line, and that's something that is distinctive to this team, and it makes it easier for the sweeper not have to think, oh, am I hearing someone on sheet 1 or sheet 4? If you're using those more distinct words that your team uses consistently, it makes it easier for the sweepers and thrower to understand.
Yeah. We talk about communication all the time, and that's just another great showing of, you know, as a team, they discuss that if I want you to sweep, I'm going to yell line. I'm not going to yell hard like everybody else.
Yeah.
I'm going to yell line, and this rock seems to be hitting that faster path out in the 8-foot.
Oh, and we hear that Dylan's calling for a little bit of an audible here, trying to bring it back. And I don't mind bringing it back as far as you can, because they're trying to prevent a wall from being created. So I think you'll see we're seeing Team Dobson call for the hit, I believe. So.
I like this call. You're looking at the scoreboard. Yes, you're early, but you're up 2. Interesting enough changing the call, but they still do want to eliminate a stone. And I really don't mind playing the run back, solely because if you do make the peel, there is a natural double and almost a natural triple set up.
Yeah, Sam, I think we're actually seeing them throw a backline soft shot, trying to use that curlier side to kind of get in there, maybe move it back a little. I think they're just discussing right now if they want.
We're just gonna wait until they call a shot before we discuss.
Well, no, but we can hear them now, and right now they're discussing. Okay, do we want to remove that rock or just bump it back a little?
And I think scoreboard says let's play. And the coach is calling a timeout, and that's a great timeout call, solely because he sees that there's confusion on the team. There's confusion about the communication. So let's call a timeout, and let's remind our players that we're up 2, let's eliminate a stone here. Let's play hackboard if we're going to go after that shot rock, not play this little tap. I like the tap if you're down 2 without hammer. But when you're up 2, I like eliminating at least one stone here. So we'll see if we can hear them, and if not, we'll find out what they decide.
I don't think,
and I don't think we can hear them, but I think, as I just said, we've discussed what their coach is really going down there and saying. They're saying, let's eliminate a blue stone. If we can hit and roll on the one on the center line towards the one in the back 4 and really trying to put the pressure back on Team Stockton, that's a really great shot. I think they're worried that side tends to be a little bit later movement.
Yes.
And so that's probably what they're discussing is let's play this hack board weight. And that's exactly what they're talking about. Just shout out to our tech guys, Craig and Ashton today, and Matt yesterday. We couldn't do this without them. And the parents back home, I know, really appreciate it, and all the viewers back home really appreciate it, because obviously in the new world we live in, they can't be here at the club.
Yeah.
And we are not tech guys,
to say the least.
So we wouldn't know how to start to run this, and we couldn't do it without them. So really big shout out to Craig and Ashton and Matt.
Yeah, they've been nothing but flexible and accurate in their job, and it's just great to see. Great to bring this level of junior curling to YouTube and to all the folks at home watching.
And they're playing the shot that I've kind of mentioned, the hack board waiter. It looks like they decided with board. And again, you hear that communication saying line.
Yeah, I like to see that, and we're seeing Matt trying to get it to curl, makes that double.
Great shot.
It's a nice shot there. And I think, Sam, what you want me to say is that you were right.
Yes, 3-2 for Team Sam.
Yeah, but instead of doing an overall, let's do today. So I'll keep tally just for you. 1-0, Sam Steep.
That's what I like to hear. For Team Stockton, I like this call. You're sitting shot stone. Let's put this in the top 8 foot, second shot. Really put the pressure on Team Dobson. And for Elias, I didn't get the pleasure of commentating the first 2 ends, and you guys got to hear Rob and his wisdom. But a very pressured draw and a big sweep here. Try to get it there. I'm just coming up short.
Yeah, I believe that was actually Micah throwing that.
Yeah, Micah. Yeah, last time I've done that twice now, so 3 strikes you're out. So Rob might have to come back on the microphone.
So
sorry, Micah. I'll be better. For Team Dobson, Elias's goal here is to make the board weight hit here. They went from board to hack to control. That's a little interesting.
yeah, I think so. Okay.
Control is final. That's what I like to hear from Jacob.
You'd like to see the decisiveness.
Yeah.
I hope that we didn't get to see, but I'm hoping that they adjusted the broom accordingly to the weight that they're throwing.
I like control, especially on this side, because we do see that movement on this side, and a big sweep by Owen here to get it by the guard.
Great sweeping effort there.
And still hit the rock, and though you're rolling to the open side, mission accomplished.
Yeah, and I think if you're Elias there, you're giving Owen a pat on the back.
Yeah.
That was a great team shot there. Great sweep by that
I
guard.
like control weight over there. If we were on the opposite side of the sheet, I would have preferred the board weight.
Yeah.
But with that side of the sheet, I like that they decided with control. And for Micah, trying to adjust from his last draw and putting about 10 more feet more weight. And if you do end up on the stones in the back 8 foot, you're still shot stone and pressure back on Team Dobson. And Dylan is urging Cole to sweep the stone. And they want it to be top 4 foot buried, and that's a great adjustment by Micah and a great team shot. So for Dobson, and if I'm Jacob, I would like to follow him down, but he communicated to Elias that he likes this side of the sheet. He thinks that it's going to finish, that once I get by that center guard, I'm still going to be, if I'm a little heavy, I still can get to that backing because it does sweep that much. But if you're Team Dobson, you really want to just put this full top 4 foot. So let's hear what the communication is in the hack.
I think
we can't quite hear them, but you can definitely hear the communication.
Yeah,
you see that they're talking.
I think Sam might need to get his ears checked because I'm hearing that 375 is the split time that I heard there. So that's from the back line to the hog line, and it's giving the sweeper an indication of about where the weight will end up.
I did not hear that. So good ears by and big sweeper to get it by, and the way that hit rolled off, it looked like the weight was close.
Yeah, I think that 375 split time would have been really close there.
Yeah. So for Team Stockton, we've talked about the make after miss percentage.
Yes.
And this is one of those times. Yes, it's only the third end, but you are down 2, and that is a big stat that most teams do keep because it is a very important part of our game of curling. So for Jacob, or I mean for Dylan, he really wants to put this in the top 4 foot right on that junior slam rock, buried behind, or at least half buried behind the guard.
Yeah, and I think a great way to think about this make-miss percentage we're talking about is, okay, whatever team you are, if you get a miss out of your opponent, it's an opportunity to put that little bit extra pressure on your opponent, and making that shot or making even that half shot after a full miss puts that little bit of extra pressure on the opponent to execute. And for Dylan and team, that stone being lighter than they wanted it to, not quite being in the top 4 foot, it really is a good tolerance, because if they were heavy, then Team Dobson has a pocket to freeze to, and we talk about that control zone so often. And for Team Stockton, for Jacob leaving that stone in the top 12, that is a good tolerance to have, because their stone is now fully buried, biting the back of the button. And for Team Dobson, they decide, you know what, we know this path, we know this side of the sheet, let's play this draw. Conventionally speaking, you probably, if you know both sides of the sheets really well, that you'd probably play the other side of the sheet, the other draw. But they like how much this moves, and he knows that his weight was closed last time. So for Jacob, big shot here to really kind of cut that scoring area down. And what a great sweep. And what I just talked about, though they didn't get shot stone, they really took that side out of the contention. Teams, Dylan Stockton can't use that draw. It's a lot harder of a draw. So now for Dylan, he has to switch sides. He can't play the same path that he just did. So he has to switch sides and draw the 4 foot here for his second point. And we talk about extra points being so important, and yes, you got your 1 point, and that's your main objective when you have hammer is to score, but that multi-point is really important to tie this game. And sweepers are calling heavy. Cole's staying close. And maybe if they are heavy, they could try and in off this yellow if it curls up. And just not enough movement. And as Rob was talking, and Rob and Ryan were talking about earlier in this game, this ice is very release sensitive, and it just looked like he had a very positive release on that stone, and it really stayed straighter out there, because the weight did come down, and the weight was close to T-line. So I think they just got out that wider path with a little bit more positive release, and it didn't quite finish. But if you're Dylan Stockton, you scored. You know, it's a 1 point game. Yes, you're down 1 without, but you can start to kind of put the aggression out there. So this center guard kind of over curling, so Dylan is asking them, you know what, I don't want to give them a corner guard, so let's just bring it into the ring since the center guard did over curl.
And
I like that.
for Jacob, I absolutely, when you're up one, I absolutely like this nose hit.
Let's get rid of it. Yeah, it's still early.
And I like that comment from Jacob saying, it's still early, we're up one, we have hammer in an even end. Let's just hit this stone. And for Matt, trying to adjust from his last hit that he threw. Throughout the game, that's what you want to do at every position. If you do end up missing a hit or a draw, you really want to adjust and make the next one confidence-wise and execution-wise. And that's a great adjustment from Matt to make that hit and roll. And for Dylan Stockton, I do like this hit, solely because you are only down one. And we talked about Team McDonald last night playing the patient game in the first four ends, and I think Team Stockton is really playing that patient game, and I like that a lot. And for Jacob, a big sweep to try and hold the stone. And as we've been seeing the previous 8 draws, that inside out towards sheet 3 has been curling.
No, it really has been moving a lot, Sam, and I think just making sure when you're throwing that side of the sheet, specifically that turn, you're getting that crisp positive release with nice hit weight.
Yeah, and though it is early in the end, obviously with lead stones still being thrown, an opportunity for Team Dobson to split the rings with hammer and get that soft deuce that we've been talking about.
No, and I think that concept of the soft deuce we've been talking about is important because it gives you a chance to put 2 on the board with little risk. There's very little risk that Team Dobson has, and you can see Owen putting everything he has into it to bring it into the ring in a great sweep. And I love to see the off call there by Jacob at the end, trying to keep those Yellowstones even to prevent the double from happening.
And a great draw, a great adjustment for Matt going from that hit to a draw. It's one of those practice drills you do. There's a drill where you can throw the hit, then the draw, hit, draw, and really be as accurate as possible. And though early in the season, it's nice to see Matt make that hit and then make the draw. You're really setting up the end as best as possible for Team Dobson.
Love
a great hit there.
Yeah.
By Jacob.
Yeah, it's great to see that teammates are supporting each other, making those shots, and maybe their lead missed one, but at the same time, Jacob said, no, don't worry about a call, I'll make this one. So it's good to always see that happening.
So, head down sweeping from Matt, which last time they were on the live stream was a trend.
To say the least, Sam.
You're seeing that trend again.
Yeah.
And though they're not going to make the rings here, a good tolerance with even ends, throwing that corner guard, because if you do get a hit and roll out by Stockton, you can really bury one behind that corner guard. So we talk about tolerance so much because it is so important. For Jacob here, making a nice hit and stick so Team Dobson can't make that roll is important. And we've been seeing Hardwell this whole time. I think that rock kind of fooled Dylan a little bit. He expected it to curl a little more. But as we've seen the last 8 draws, that inside out going towards sheet 1 is a little straighter.
To quote the great Sam Steep, absolutely.
So, as we talked about for Team Dobson, Owen coming up light on the split attempt last shot really gives you an advantage to really bury one behind the guard that you just threw.
Mm-hmm.
Big sweep. Elias has been head down from start to finish to try to bring this into the rings. And it just bites. Great sweep by Elias and a great team shot. And for Stockton, you have to remember, yes, you can see 3/4 of this stone, or a thick half. Remember that getting the guard is just as good, solely because that is one of your problem stones. Yes, both stones are your problem rocks, but if we're not going to make shot A, let's make sure we make shot B. And a big sweep by
Jacob.
Jacob
Oh,
here.
it's getting really close. Oh, great hold.
Yeah, great shot. And rolling right to center, so Team Dobson can't really just leave it alone there.
Yeah, and Sam, I love to see the patience of these teams. They know that, especially if you're Team Stockton, yes, I might be down a point on the scoreboard, but if you think about that kind of traditional goal of scoreboard management, force one, take two, force one, take two, I think that's what Team Stockton has in mind here. Maybe playing this end a little bit open, a blank, or potentially a force if all shots are executed, and then moving on to the next end, looking for that force. Big sweep here by Matt to hold the line for the roll. Looks like they get it right off center, which is good.
And for Micah, you really just want to follow Team Dobson down and make that hit and stick, and continue to focus on not giving Team Dobson a shot. And as we've seen in that center line, with a little bit lighter of a weight, it really does move. For Team Dobson, for Jacob, I like this call. He says, you know what, our Yellowstone is in the top 12 foot where it could help Dylan Stockton later on in the end. So let's split, let's make some separation. And by splitting this top 12 stone, when made perfectly, you're putting one yellow in the one side of the 8 foot and the other yellow behind your corner guard. So it is a delicate shot, but when made, it's really, really powerful. It looks like this stone is over curling. I like the woe call just because he sees that it was over curling it, and a good shot. You do get that separation. You're not quite rolling the shooter as much as you want, but still good separation between both yellows. And I like that Dylan is being decisive here and saying, let's make the hit roll. Whether we hit and roll behind the top 12 stone or hit and roll behind the corner guard, you'll still be shot stone. I like the communication from Micah to Dylan, just reminding him that this spot does move, and just be aware of that when you're in the hack. So a big shot for Dylan Stockton here to make a nice hit and roll, because Team Dobson is sitting 2, and when you started this end, your goal was to force. So a nice hit and roll here would be really good. And Mike is calling them right off and getting Jacob to make it curl. This looks close. I think they're just got great shot, kind of rolling behind that corner guard, and in the hack they could probably see maybe about a half a stone, maybe about a quarter stone. So they do have to chase this blue one. And a great shot from Dylan.
Yeah, I like that.
So as we talked about, Dylan making a really nice hit and roll here for Jacob. A big shot for him to kind of follow him down in this path that we've seen, this inside out path towards sheet 3 move with that lighter weight. So this rock is definitely accessible, and you really just want to see a nice clean release here from Jacob. And I like the rotation on the stone. I like the weight. It's not too soft, but a big sweep by Matt here to get it by this corner guard. And though he doesn't make the shot, and he does make the tolerance, now that blue stone is wide open, so Team Stockton has to be very careful where they put this stone. I like that they're talking about the hit. They realize, yes, we're down 1, but it's only the 4th end. We don't need to be too aggressive. If we were talking about the 6th end, I would obviously love a draw around that one in the top 12. But the 4th, I think the hit is the call. And though Dylan does hit and roll out, mission accomplished. You get rid of that yellow, Team Dobson can't score 2. And you're making Team Dobson make the blank attempt. And as we've talked about many times, when I'm a skip in the hack here, I do not want to be afraid to take 1.
To quote a coach that both Sam and I have had, the famous words of Stu Anderson, it's a beach ball.
Yeah.
Throw at it, and you can be aggressive with it, but don't be afraid to take a point here. And just envision that beach ball. Know that you have Owen sweeping this stone, and he will do his best to keep it straight and make a great shot for the team.
And whoa, right out of Elias's hand. And I like a big sweep from Owen to make the blank attempt, and it does roll out, and a great team shot, but exactly what we said. They just said, you know what, if this overcurls and we take 1, we're still up 2 on even ends.
No, exactly, Sam. And I think I think they had the earpiece in on that last stone, knowing that we're up a point right now. Taking another one is never a bad thing to do, especially in the even ends.
Yes, I'm Rob still. I love it. Quickly take it off. I want to be Rob. It's okay.
I know. Living the life of Rob Matheson is the dream. We can confirm. But no, I like how they threw that, and I like to see just the confidence in knowing that Owen really did make that shot for them.
My days of Rob are over.
Darn it.
North American fidget.
Yeah, should have seen Rob. He was twirling that pen like a fidget spinner champion.
for Team Stockton fans, a good end, because you're flipping the scoreboard. Yes, you're down 1 without, but if you get a force on the odd ends, you have hammering that all-important 6th end. So they're really hoping, Cole's really hoping for this stone to stop before the rings, a nice tight center guard to start the end, and I think we're going to see a more aggressive end by Team Stockton, and I like that. Like I was just talking about, forcing in the 5th, even though you're down 1, is a really good position, because yes, you'll be down 2, but scoring in that all-important 6th end is very important. Very important, like I just said. And for Matt and for Jacob Dobson, I like this call around the center guard. They're not being too aggressive. They're saying, I'm okay with a blank in the 5th now. So a big sweep by Elias here. And I like the team communication. This rock should, we see this side really hit the brakes in the last couple feet, and that is a great position stone. Top full 4 foot. You're taking control of that front house, and a great shot by Matt. And for Team Stockton, you're gonna want to see Cole try and follow him down, make the corner freeze / tap. And get that yellow out of such a good position that it's in. And the way the sweepers are reacting, it looks like it's coming in a little hot. And Micah is really trying to make it curl there. And a great setup to this end so far. Cole throwing that tight guard, and Matt falling down, putting it top 4 foot. And then Cole just making the perfect freeze. We're really seeing some high execution late in this, or early on this Sunday morning, late in the tournament. And for the first event of the year, it's really fun to see. It's really fun to see these U18 curlers make and set up the ends just like this. You see an end like this on TV all the time. You see that tight center, the top 4, the freeze, and then now Matt is trying to follow Cole down and make another freeze. You see that scenario on TV all the time, and it's great to see that these U18 players make the execution just like the pros. And for Owen, he's trying to make this rock curl, and though you do chap off, and it looks like blue is second stone, you're putting another yellow in play, and when you have hammer, having another counter in the rings is never a bad thing. For Team Stockton, I like this call, because you're realizing the scoreboard, you're only down 1, you make the hit roll, you're going to be sitting 2nd and 3rd. And for Team Dobson, I'd really like to see a peel if this shot is made. So we'll see what happens. Micah is trying to make that rock curl again. A really nice shot, and Team Stockton is really shrinking that scoring area. And if I'm Team Dobson, I would really like a peel. Solely because, yes, if you peel, Team Stockton can then hit and sit 3, but then there's no guards in play. You'll have a pretty natural double, and you're okay with a blank here. So if you make this peel, and Jacob disagrees with me, he says, I don't like ripping. And that's probably just the aggressive nature of Team Dobson. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with this call. You're protecting your point, putting this in the top 12, that control zone, and trying to take care of this end. And Jacob's saying, you know what? I'm going to guard and sit 1 until my last shot, and I'm going to draw the pin for 2. So he's asking Owen to put the stone in the top 12 foot and just really trying to control the control zone. big sweep here from Elias to get the stone over the hog line. And though it's not in the top 12 like they wanted, it's mission accomplished. Their yellow is now protected.
Exactly, Sam. And again, it just speaks to the players knowing that cadence of the shot, knowing where the plan B is okay, and especially considering where that rock was called, the line was more vital than the depth. So it's good to see that they have that line blocked off, making it a little bit more difficult for Team Stockton. I think we're seeing Dylan ask Jacob for that, I believe it's what, a T-line draw here, Sam?
Yeah, about top 4, maybe trying to sneak into shot stone if you can. Very difficult shot, but remembering the tolerance here would have been top 12, top 8, really make a usable stone. And I like that the team's realizing it's heavy, let's just sweep it so their team Dobson doesn't have backing.
No, exactly, and it speaks to knowing what the leave is. If you leave it there beside back 4 foot, you're in a world of hurt, Team Stockton, and it's good that they saw that and said, let's bring it back, let's make it more difficult for Team Dobson to throw this really precise draw.
Yeah. And Jacob's asking Owen to put this exactly where Team Stockton wanted to put it. About full 4 foot, second shot, really focusing on the placement. Because if you do leave this in the back, if you do leave this in the top 8 foot, it's a really usable stone. That Team Stockton will have to use it. And,
well, they'll have to move it.
Yeah, they'll have to move it around. So I like the communication. Matt has communicated that it's about a 4, which is a top 12 call.
Yeah.
And they decided early that let's just protect our stone that we have in the house, and it's a good tolerance from Owen.
And just while we have a minute, Sam, I wanted to shout out the players on sheet 2, just like all the other players out there, adjusting to the COVID protocols for where you're supposed to stand, who's supposed to be involved. As we've seen on our sheet, the teams have been doing a great job, fully masked throughout the game, keeping that distance with only one sweeper being engaged. It's really nice to see that these athletes have picked up, and just like it's the new normal for them. So I believe Team Stockton is asking Mika for a come around. It seems to have just picked up a little bit of extra curl, Sam.
Yeah. And Rob was talking about how release sensitive this ice is, and if you do have a hair softer release on that side that really moves that extra 1.5 to 2 feet, it's gonna curl a ton. Yeah. So for Team Dobson, Rock didn't finish as much as they wanted, but that stone, they just wanted a little more curl there. And if that yellow stone is about 1 foot towards the center line, Team Stockton wouldn't be able to make this hit and roll. And though with the guards the way they are set up, there is no double, they can play a nice board weight hit and roll and really shrink that scoring area. And if made really well, you could be shot stone after this rock. So we talk about how important every player is. A big shot for Micah here. Cole sweeping really hard. Just rubs. But they do get that yellow out of that control position that it was in.
Yeah, Sam, and I think that sweep is brought to you in part by Junior Slam Series. Looking at the Team Stockton ice pad room heads, it's really nice to see that all 4 of them have that Junior Slam Series broom head. We like the design of it. We like to see the players using it, and it's just great to see that on the ice.
A good draw there by Team Dobbs. Team Dobson tried to make a nice draw there, just coming up short on that left side, but they really take that draw path away from Team Stockton.
Yeah, and I really don't mind the way the house is set up for Team Dobson right now. Obviously, I think you're going to see Dylan I think he's making a play on that top button stone. Maybe just like a soft back 8-foot weight tap it. It's either that or the freeze. So I think Team Stockton is trying to end up shot at the end. It looks like about a
hack weight hit.
Yeah.
And very weight sensitive on this side of the sheet, and Mike is calling them right off.
I heard the never call, but it should move in a bit for them here.
I think a little more weight than they wanted to throw. And that's exactly what Micah said. Just heavy. He liked the line. Mm-hmm. He liked the way Dylan threw it. Just a little bit too much weight.
Well, and that's the makeup of Rob Matheson's ice here, is that I feel the broom was in the right spot there. It's just the release and weight sensitivity really changes the outcome of the shot, and I like that because it forces the athletes to be that extra bit precise, a little bit more accurate, which we always like to see, and we've seen all the teams being able to do that and make that adjustment. So what's the call here, Sam?
I think they're protecting their 1 point.
Okay.
I don't see a shot for 2 right now, so maybe that's what they're trying to create. Maybe tapping their shot stone back to the back blue one and making space so on Jacob's next shot he can tap it in for 2 is maybe kind of a setup shot. Didn't quite hear the communication between the skip and the vice, whether that is the call, and we're going to find out. I like that tolerance that Jacob Dobson just had. He came up lighter than he wanted because I'm pretty sure he wanted to play a freeze, but he really took away that path from Stockton, from Dylan. And for Dylan, it looks like he's just trying to throw a draw to the edge of the 4 foot, really keep shrinking that scoring area so Team Dobson does not have a shot for 2.
Yeah, I like that call, Sam. Oh, yeah, you can see that they're asking to get it to curl. I like the audible here and understanding that it's not exactly where they want it to be, but at the same time, they're not going to leave an opening to make Team Dobson's shot a little bit easier. Good to see that audible call there.
And for Team Dobson, we were talking about the second or third draw of the event, that if you can manipulate your release to make the stone curl more, this is one of those shots you have to do that. Because if you throw your natural release, it's not going to curl to the edge of the button. So if you can master 1 or 2 less rotations than you normally throw, you're going to see a big late finish on that curl side. And made perfectly, this is there. You just really have to get close to that center guard and really hope for that late finish. And that's something that at this level you really want to perfect, having the same amount of rotation across all 4 players of your team. But it's also really interesting to learn how you can manipulate a stone legally.
Yeah, we don't want to see any stones kicked.
To manipulate a stone legally, throwing that maybe a little bit less rotation so you get a little more curl on this side.
Yeah,
and it looks like he has thrown a little bit less rotation than Jacob normally throws, so they're hoping for a late finish here, and Owen's saying it's a little heavy. Yeah, 8-9 is what I've heard, and great idea, and one that you put in your memory bank for later on in this game. So Team Dobson takes one there to have a 4-2 lead going into the 6th end. And if you're Team Stockton, you're happy with the force because you have hammer in this all-important 6th end that we talk about. Obviously, your goal is multiple points, and you have yet to do that this game, but really important to do it right now in the 6th end. Just to update everybody, on sheet 1 you see Team Mayville leading Team Hastings 4-1, Team Hastings having hammer. On sheet 4 you see Team Stratton leading Team Jones 3-0, Team Jones having hammer in the 6th end. And on sheet 5, a very close game in between Team Murray and Team Malima, tied 3-3, and Team Malima has hammer in that all-important 6th end that we talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And all of the players on all sheets of ice right now need to be keeping in mind that a scoring in the 6th end, especially if you have hammer, Sam, it means that you have a high chance of scoring an 8 as well, which is the last end. So it's really good. It's great to see the pace of play that these athletes are having. It's great to just see how these ends, these critical 6th ends, are going to play out.
And for Team Dobson, I believe they called top 4 there, which is a great call when you are up 2.
Yes.
And for Matt, you don't have much of a tolerance for top 4, but putting that really tight guard and controlling that control zone that we talk about is a great tolerance. Yes, you didn't love a guard, but it's much better than just over the hog line. And it's a very usable stone.
Yeah, it's in that control zone, and that's where if you're Team Dobson, I like that anything kind of in that center line, maybe they didn't get it where they wanted it before, but now you see Jacob asking Matt to throw that 6 feet more weight and put it behind that guard that's there. And this is one of those key setup shots that front end, specifically right now the lead, this is where they make their impact on the game. If you can set up your team in a really good position right now, Team Stockton might be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, and we talked about that 5th end, the lead set up the end just perfectly, where the lead stone of Matt's stone was the point for Team Dobson. And a lot of a lot of viewers, they don't see how important all 4 players are. And the fact that Matt Stone was so good in the 5th end, it ended up being the scoring point, really shows that all 8 stones in the end are important for each team.
No, anecdotally speaking, Sam, on my team that I have played on previously, shout out to Riley Griffith, living in Ottawa, Ontario right now. I would always love to see those first 2 rocks positioned perfectly, and if we execute the rest of our shots that end, I'm guarding his stone. And I think that's an important thing for the skipper and team to communicate, is that the stone that's scoring is one of the first 2 stones of the end.
Absolutely.
So it just speaks to how well the team threw that end and how well the lead took the initiative to make those 2 stones positioned very well.
Yeah, and for Team Dobson, I just heard Matt or Elias, one of them, say this shot is better to be heavy. We have enough center guards.
Yeah.
We're controlling that control zone.
Yeah.
Owen, I'd rather you be back 12 than another guard, is basically what they're saying. But let's put this top 4 buried. It should be the last sentence you say to your thrower before they settle in the hack and throw the stone. Talk about the tolerance, but end with the shot that you want made. And a big sweep here by Matt to get it by that center guard.
Well, I think we're seeing the audible here, Sam, trying to get it to move over for that tap.
And for Owen, though your rock over curled, you had the right weight. That was T-line weight.
Yeah.
A good sweep by Matt. And for Team Dobson, getting a little more junkier than they want.
Yeah.
But for Team Stockton, to look at their perspective, for Cole, Dylan called the corner guard, and it was a great shot by Cole to make that corner guard, and Cole attempted to draw around it, but he made a right tolerance in being another corner guard and bringing rocks in play. If you're Team Stockton, that's exactly what you want when you're down 2 in the 6th end, is the play around the corner guards. They're hoping that this stone hits the brakes.
Oh.
And it is. They're actually finishing it, and as we heard, it's buried.
Yeah. And I think I like the aggressive play here by Team Dobson. They recognize, look, we have that control zone, and we've thrown this path 3 times. They've got to be using those past 3 shots and the knowledge that they got from that to really get in there, sink one top 4, and put the pressure on Dylan and the rest of his team.
I like this call by Jacob solely because Owen just threw this shot, and he just threw really good weight. So give me another 2 or 3 inches of ice, and let's make this really good. And if I'm Team Jacobs, I'm not Team Jacobs. They got really good. If I'm Team Dobson, I would be finishing that stone as much as possible, just like they did in the last couple feet. Because now that yellow one is buried, and Team Stockton is kind of forced to play to the center now. And that blue one that they just threw is kind of, for right now, it's out of the question. Dylan is asking Jacob to put this top 4 buried behind those yellow stones. And Micah's calling heavy right now. So it would be nice to see an audible of maybe a hit and roll off this corner guard. Tick. And just ticks the yellow where the blue is now shot stone. So not the shot called, but a decent result.
Yeah, an interesting turn of events there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden that blue stone in the corner is back in play.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think advantage is to Team Dobson right now. They've thrown this path numerous times, and I have a feeling this one's going to be close.
Yeah, for the lefty alert.
Lefty alert. N6.
We knew Elias was a lefty the whole game, but we decided to keep that from you until the 6th end.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of secrecy on our part. Sorry about that, but no, it's and it's good to see Matt really finishing over. It looks like they're gonna get the wick, and I don't mind, Sam. I really like the audible there on the wick, and I really like how it kind of chapped over back into that control zone that seems to really be dictating where the play is headed to this end.
Yeah, if you're Team Stockton, it's kind of tough to hide. Yes, you have a lot of guards in play, but they're all Team Dobson's guards. That yellow one in the tight guard zone, it will only be a 4 to 5 foot run back.
Yeah, Sam, sorry to interrupt you here. What do you think about the draw on this side? Do you like the draw through the port, or do you see maybe a draw on the other side, or do you see any other shots here?
I think this is the call.
Okay.
And though they promoted that Yellowstone, your Bluestone is shot rock, and you've kind of staggered that center line where if you can get behind that, you are going to score. Whoever's first to this top 4 foot behind those 3 center guards is definitely an advantage to that team. Head down, as Jacob is calling Owen to sweep, and Owen is absolutely head down, sweeping as hard as he can, and they're asking for 110% effort, and that's what Owen's giving them. And though that racked, we talk about controlling that front of the rings, and that's exactly what they're doing. And for Team Stockton, they have to switch sides. Yeah, you have to make this draw path that maybe you don't know quite as well. I know it's the 6th end and you should know most of the paths, but they do know that left side of the sheet better than the right side. So it'll be an adjustment for Team Stockton and a very big team shot here by Micah. And that stone, being that 5 to 8 feet light, really catches the curl, which you like to see for Rob Matheson's ice.
Yes.
As an ice maker, you like to see that. As a Team Stockton fan, you're probably hoping that gets in the 8 foot and sit 2 stones.
Yeah. I think there's that magnetic pull to the center line that we've been talking about for a couple of these ends. I believe we have about 3 or 4 really in that control zone. Most of those stones belong to Team Dobson, so that is going to bode well for them. I believe they're calling the tap on that yellow stone, and they're trying to promote it into the 4 foot.
For learning purposes, an interesting call because there is some risk to it. Though we do see the side curl, if you do have that positive release, it will promote the Bluestone, and that's exactly, you do not want that if you're Team Dobson. So maybe beating Team Stockton to that draw on the other side might have been the call, because if you do come up lighter and wick off the guards, and how does Team Stockton get into the rings for their second point? Is my point. But obviously Jacob Dobson sees this shot, and he's going to try his hardest to prove me wrong, and they're staying close to this stone. It's got to be close here. And though he did promote the Bluestone,
that magnetic pull we see to the center line.
The magnetic pull, we now see 5 center guards, all in the 3 guard zone.
Yeah, like that 3 to 4. I know it's that classic quadruple center line guard here that we're seeing.
And it's interesting. I would like to see Team Stockton make this this draw into the top 8 foot, top 4 foot, because the way those rocks are lined up, it almost looks like if you nose that blue one with normal to peel weight, that yellow one, it kind of drags to the button, which would be interesting to see. I'd like to see Dobson throw that just because I want to see how those rocks react.
Sam, I think the coach just gave you that death glare. I think we saw one of the coaches saying, "Yes, let's have some fun. Let's see where the angles are going." But I do
As
like
a curling fan, that's what I want to see.
But as if I'm to take the position of a Team Stockton supporter right now, I like this call.
Absolutely
I
agree.
like the draw around. I like putting that pressure on, sitting 2 with Hammer, and I think it's a critical shot here, considering that the 6th end is so important, and it looks like it's the difference between potentially a 2 score versus a steal, depending on where these shots go.
Big sweep here. Mike is putting all his effort to call line, and though you don't make it through the hole, you do leave your blue stone in a good spot. And now we could be making bets on who shot stone. Let's see if we can hear what the curlers say. It's really close, is what I heard.
I think that's an understatement, Sam. But I like the enthusiasm you had there. That's probably about the intensity that the athletes have out there.
They can see a quarter of that blue stone. I like chasing this blue stone. We've talked about it earlier in the end that though you wanted to play to the center because there is, to say the least, a lot of center guards, this is probably absolutely the right call, because even if you do make the freeze, your shot stone, you're forcing Team Stockton to 1. And I don't really want to pick who shot stone.
No, I think we're gonna let the measuring stick decide that one
If
for
needed.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if those 2 stones stay the position they are, I think I'd like to see a measure just to be sure.
Absolutely. So this looks like this is going to be a big sweep by Owen. We've seen the spot move.
Yeah.
So Owen head down, which we've seen a lot this game, and a big sweep to get by the guard, and just gets by. Looks like it went through the corner guard.
Yeah, the great sweep there, and you can see the intensity of Team Dobson. Matt's there behind Owen, urging him to put everything he has into that stone, and it looks like we're going to see Team Stockton follow them down and try to just get to the face of that yellow stone and score a point. And if I'm Team Stockton, Sam, I don't mind how this end has shapen up. There's been some opportunities for Team Dobson to really control that 4-foot zone behind that straight line of rocks, as we see for the most part. And it's good to see that Team Stockton has left themselves a final shot to score in that all-important 6th end.
Yeah, big shot here. Obviously, we talk about how important it is to score, and for Dylan, love to see a made shot here.
Oh, all the way. I hear the all the way call here. It's really moving. Lines really, and that's a great shot, Sam. And I think that is
some great shot.
It's a great shot, and yes, some would argue it's just a hit, but it's a hit against 4. The outcome of that shot could have completely changed the trajectory of this game. It's good to see both teams digging in, and I feel like we're going to have a really good last 2 ends to this game.
I'm going to say about 13 stones were in play there.
Yeah.
Out of the 16, not 32. Out of 16
not
stones.
32.
And I'm going to say we're going to see that trend in the last 2 ends as well.
Yeah, I think both teams are definitely going for the high score of rocks in play.
And just to compliment to both teams, there was a lot of stones to clean up. Both teams selected those 2 to 3 players, clean the rocks up very quickly, and starting this 7th end, because they do know that they're on a quick schedule. These teams have 2 hours and 15 minutes to play 8 ends, which roughly means about 17 minutes an end to 18 minutes an end, which is a good amount of time.
Yeah.
But for the first event, of the season.
It's a bit of a learning
It's
curve.
a bit of a learning curve, and we've seen that all weekend, that these teams are learning to play at a good pace. And I just want to compliment Team Dobson and Team Stockton on how fast they cleaned up the stones and how fast they started this 7th end.
Yeah, I like to see the adaptations to both the ice and the pace of play. As the games have been going on, we've seen better and better decisiveness by the skips and readiness to throw in the hack, and you love to see it, especially this early in the season, Sam.
Big sweep by Elias here. And the last couple feet, there was a little bit of confusion because Elias wanted to keep that Yellowstone above T-line.
Yeah.
And Jacob wanted the stone to bury.
So,
and that's something that, as a team, they have to talk about off the ice before a game.
Yeah.
Because, in my opinion, when you do have that 1-point lead in the 7th end, I think staying above T is very important.
I completely agree, Sam.
So, not to pick sides, but check mark for Elias there for keeping that rock above the T line.
Yeah, and I think the thing there, we've all been behind the house as the skipper, and sometimes you want to make sure it's buried, and you're so focused on getting that perfect bury that maybe it slips a foot deeper than you're thinking. And it is, we are nitpicking right now.
Absolutely.
But I think the quality of curling that these teams have provided through the first 6 ends, there is not that much between them.
And I just think it's very vital to learn at this young age, because I can't count the number of times that my team has been bitten by a stone that's been in the back 4 foot later on in the end. And great communication by Elias to keep that stone above the T line. And for Team Stockton, 2 center guards, you're controlling that control zone that we talk about. You know that we need to either steal or force them to 1 point.
Yeah.
So great tolerance, though. They did call a freeze on that last stone. Great tolerance to keep it light. I like the heads-up play by Jacob Dobson to try to bring that Yellowstone deeper.
Yeah.
Just because they noticed that it was slightly heavy.
Really, I like the call here from Dylan. And I believe that they are just discussing the tolerance for the shot, and I think I hear them saying, coming back to it's okay, guys. Especially, it's never a bad thing to use that backing. I've heard that they said it was a bit up, so we'll have to wait and see how this rock moves in there. But this is the curl side, so they need to stay close here.
And just more weight than they wanted. And I like the line that they chose, though that yellow does stick around. You're moving it out of the 4 foot zone. And aggressive call by Team Dobson here. As a team, they probably discussed that let's just take 2 and really open this game up a little bit.
Yeah.
Personally speaking, being up 1 in the 7th end, I probably would like to see a peel of at least one of those blue stones.
No, and Sam, that goes back to personal preference because I see this shot, and I can see myself out there calling this shot.
I can see you calling this shot.
Yes, the classic Team Hahn, let's get the rocks in play, let's put the points on the board, and let's try to get off the ice as soon as possible. And I think it comes down to personal preference. We've seen that this side moves, so the shot is there to be made, and if it's made, it'll be interesting to see what Dylan and team does.
Yeah, and Elias is calling great communication by the team. They're saying that this is light.
Yeah, if we're not in whoa.
If we're not in whoa, that's a great line by Jacob there.
Yeah, and it's usable.
You know that Yellowstone is guarded now.
Yeah.
By all 3 stones. So Team Stockton being down 1 with, we talked about them wanting to steal or force, and now they have to throw a nose run back.
Yeah, and Sam, I heard something really good from the skipper Jacob there from Team Dobson. He's telling the sweepers, whoa, 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 and then the rock stops and he says, guys, look, this is why I said whoa. We want to make sure that rock's available and accessible if need be, and I like to hear that communication and explanation of why. So lines out, have Jacob on the brush here, I believe.
And that works.
I think that's about a plan D, plan E call there. I didn't see the angles on that one, but I think clearing the front was a good call there, and they got a little bit fortunate on the result.
Yeah. If you're sitting in the hack throwing that stone, you know that being wide doesn't do you any good. There.
Yeah, you're right.
So him in the hacks thinking, you know what, some good things might happen if I do miss narrow and we do get the wick like they did. So good heads up play by Team Stockton to see that. And that's not something you see all the time. So for Team Dobson and for Owen, big shot to make this hit and roll.
Really huge sweep here by Matt, trying to hold that line so it doesn't crash on that guard.
Great sweep to even touch that stone. Great sweep to even touch that stone. Owen came out a little tight, and Matt head down sweeping the whole way, and as you can see, him having to take a drink. Matt and all the sweepers on all 4 sheets working really hard this morning. So for Team Stockton, playing the aggressive route of throwing this guard and protecting the stone that is shot stalled. You do have that center guard, and Micah is saying, I'd rather put this top 4. So a little bit of communication. I'd like to see Micah come down
yeah,
and talk to him, not and especially with wearing a mask, yelling is a little more difficult.
Yeah, and
so I would have liked to see, and now you see as if he has an earpiece in his ear that
yeah, we swear they don't.
Mike is coming down to talk about the shot because it is an important shot in the game.
And I love to see this, Sam. Look, I like how they're kind of rationalizing out. If they throw this shot, we'll throw that shot, and and I love to hear what Micah just said there. We need to get here before they do. Micah sees the opportunity and wants to apply that extra bit of pressure. So I don't mind the call here for that top 4 draw. So I like the input Micah had on the shot here. He seemed really confident on that draw, and they wanted to curl. So, but
just watching the stone come down, it looks like they're wanting for it to hit the brakes.
It's moving nice there, though, Sam. I think as Rob was telling us earlier on in the broadcast, it will move there, and I think it's important they leave it in a spot. Yeah, I don't mind the spot of that. I think there might be a double available for Team Dobson. But I think if that double is made, there's a double back for Team Stockton.
For Elias sitting in the hack, because this is a lefty alert, he doesn't see the rock quite as much as a righty would. So a big shot here for Elias, just like we said, it was a big shot for Micah.
Hear the line call right away. Owen is doing a great job holding it straight, trying to roll it. Unfortunate there, they got held between 2 shots, but a great hold of that stone for Owen, really making sure they remove that stone really close to the button and roll over.
With the weight they decided to throw there and try to make the double, they didn't get by that guard by much, so you were going to get stuck in between the 2 if you did hit it thicker. But a great shot by Elias to really open up that 4-foot for the skipper. And for Micah, he wants the same weight, and for the stone to be about a foot over the center line. And a big sweep here by Jacob. I like that whoa call because they said, you know what, this isn't going to bury, so let's make sure there's not a double, and that's a heads up call by Dylan. I like the communication from Jacob here, and you were always going to jam, but their goal there was to roll under the blue.
So,
and interesting call here from Stockton.
Yeah, so Sam, if I'm Team Stockton right now, I do see the double a little bit more naturally that way, but do you ever hate hitting that rock in the 4-foot first, because that's the shot stone, trying to roll over and just nudge that Yellowstone over? Like, I see it's more natural this way, but I like to move that shot stone.
I see why Team Stockton is calling the double to sit 3 and put that max pressure on Team Dobson. But I would like to see the hit and roll under those center rocks.
Oh, that's true. I didn't even see that there.
Yeah.
I think their concern with that is if they make that hit and roll, that yellow might jam on that.
And I'm okay with that because you're still going to be sitting to
Christmas tree
or buried.
Good point, Sam.
But this being made, you're going to be sitting 3 and in a good spot to at least get the force. And Micah right out of the hand, yelling for Jacob to sweep.
Great hold there. They didn't get the double they were looking for, but at the same time they were able to remove that rock.
Just for a learning aspect, if you end up playing the hit and roll like I suggested and you do end up nosing, you're going to be sitting 2.
Yes.
And I think it's important to remember that you should be hitting shot rock as much as possible.
Yeah.
And for Team Dobson, I think they're more comfortable with the hit and roll.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking if you decide to throw the draw, either the other side or kind of guard your shot stone, you really do want to focus on scoring.
Yeah.
But I think Jacob sees this line. He knows that he can make this hit and roll, and it's kind of 2 for 1 that we talk about. So
yeah.
Every shot in these last 2 ends are going to be big shots, but to say the obvious, big shot.
So a little bit of a positive release on this side.
Looks close.
Yeah.
Great shot. That rolled into a really good spot because though it looks like a natural nose double, they're going to have to almost play the blue run back almost on that top 8 stone.
Yeah, Sam, I think if I'm Team Stockton right now, I like taking my medicine and removing one of those yellow stones, and down 3, playing the last end. It's the 5 rock rule, so I don't mind it. I think definitely the straight hit on either or both of those yellow stones is a easier shot than that run back tap double.
I agree. It is easier.
Like to hear that.
But I like Dylan at least looking at that shot.
Yep.
Knowing that if I do want to steal, I need to play this blue tap. So it's definitely going to be up to Dylan and his preference to what he wants to throw. It looks like Micah's wanting him to play the hit. and take your medicine like you said, Ryan.
Yeah.
Because if you do give up 2, you're not out of the game with the
No,
5-out rule, like
you're
you
not.
said. Only
Yeah.
being down 3, it looks like they are just going to take their medicine. I would like them to not get too fancy with it, but if you could throw a heavy board, try to hit and roll on top of their yellow, that even if you aren't shot, you are really closing in that scoring area.
Yeah.
So you need to remember not to get too fancy with it, because if you do hit the outside stone, that's just fine. But made well, you really do shrink that scoring area.
Yeah. And I think if you're in the hack right now and you're Dylan, you're thinking, let's remove one of those. If we can get both, that's a bonus. But really getting rid of one of those stones is the shot here.
And it looks like they're throwing about a heavy control. Mike could call them right off, and they do need to make a decision that let's make sure we get one of these yellow stones out. And that's what Micah did. And mission accomplished if you're Team Stockton.
Yeah, and I like that shot, Sam, because you're forcing Team Dobson to make that draw shot for the second point, and there's no backing. Team Dobson can't come to that back 12-foot Stockton stone and beat that top 8-foot Stockton stone. So it'll be a really big team shot here for Team Dobson.
It's a lot of last names you said on that side.
I know. Maybe not the most grammarly correct, but I think I got the message across.
You did.
So,
a big extra point for Team Dobson, and as you see the sweepers cleaning that draw pad, you really do see that they know how important this extra point is.
Sam, I love to see that both the sweepers taking their time saying, Skipper, this is your shot, and doing everything in their power to ensure the ideal execution here.
And just to update across, we'll do an update after this shot.
Yeah, I think you put the cart in front of the horse.
Yeah, jump the gun a little bit.
But that's okay.
Big shot here for Jacob Dobson.
Yeah, I love to see the intensity in his eyes, and I feel this is going to be really close.
Yeah, and we've talked about this in the women's draw last night, that though you are a team that is winless, you see the parity, like Team Dobson leading Stockton, who went 2-2 in the round robin.
Yeah.
Though your record does say 0-4, you're right there. You know, next event you could easily be 4-0. If that's how close these teams are. And though that draw does come up light, you are up 2 going into the last end, and it's still an advantage Dobson being up 2.
No, and Sam, I think if you ask Team Dobson's coach, can we be up to playing the last without, I think they'd take it. We seem to have a little bit of a technical difficulty on the sheet 5 scoreboard. The athletes are currently playing the 7th end. Oh, pardon me, the 8th end on sheet 5. It was a blank in the 7th end. And Team Malima is leading Murray 5-3, with Team Murray having hammer on sheet 5. So there's still game going on there. Looking at sheet 4, we have Team Stratton leading Team Jones 4-2. Stratton has hammer coming home. And then on sheet 1, we have Team Mayville leading 6-2 over Team Hastings, playing the last end with Team Mayville having hammer.
And Team Mayville being one of those teams that, and Team Hastings, they went 1-3, and that's a great battle on sheet 1 there. We were talking about how all 8 of these men's teams are very close together.
Yeah.
And not physically, but because
socially distant.
We socially distance here at the Junior Slam Series. But
Good
skill-wise, they're very close together, and it's nice to see that gap. Great shot by Matt putting that on the button to start off the end. Yes, you're up 2. I'd like to see Team Dobson put this in the top 4, top 8.
Yeah,
and
just
Jacob on the same page as me.
Yeah. So It looks like we have, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you are not.
Awesome. Okay. Well, it looks like we have a final, our first final of the day on sheet 1, with Mayville taking the victory over Team Hastings. The score of 6-2. And Sam, I think the sheet 1 scoreboard doesn't justify how close of a game that was. Just a couple ends here or there really making the difference, but that's what we've seen on all of these games. So I think both teams should be proud of how they performed there.
Yeah. And just let everyone at home know, all 8 teams get to play 6 games. Even if you do lose that semifinal, you get to play the loser of the game we're watching right now.
Yeah.
And for the championship round, it's the same way. So it's really nice. We really want as many games as possible for these athletes, especially this year with, this being the only first event so far. Big sweep by Micah to get it by that corner guard. This looks like a great team shot, and Micah really putting 110% into that sweep.
And getting that rock in the house, Sam, is absolutely vital for getting that multiple score set up for Team Stockton.
Yeah, at the end of the end, that very well could be your second or third point.
Yeah.
So Micah knew that going into that shot, and that's why he put 110% of that sweeping. I just want to compliment the athletes on all 16 teams here. We've seen nothing but great sweeping. And to see that physical level being part of this game at the U18 level, it's really great to see, because they know how important it is to be in good shape in the sport of curling. And you didn't need to be in great shape, 20 years ago. But the sport has evolved so much, and sweeping is so important to the sport. So it's great to see these teams be in great physical shape and great sweepers. For Team Stockton, I like this call. Even if you just nose it, you're frozen on their yellow, and Team Dobson can't hit you out. So a great call by Dylan, knowing that he wants to bring that rock in the edge of the 12-foot into play. Trying to make this rock curl. I think maybe a little bit more weight than they wanted.
Maybe a little more weight and a little extra rotation. But I don't mind what happened. I think you're going to see Team Dobson move to the front of the playing surface and start to peel. And we appreciate them being aware of watching the camera. The cameramen behind us are thinking, we know these guys, we know all the athletes in this competition can throw a really fast stone. So it's good that they're aware of the surface.
I like that communication. They know that the side to sheet 1 is the straighter inside out side, and this side does tend to curl, and that's what they communicated to Jacob. And a big shot for Owen to get rid of this corner guard, and I really like this call. I think you could have thrown the draw. Oh, and a little bit of a stumble, but made.
Yeah.
And a good catch. He didn't burn the rock. We've seen that three or four times. We've seen an athlete fall on their legs and not burn the rock. And that...
It's a skill within itself, Sam.
It is a skill, absolutely. And we do see another final on sheet 4. It looks like Team Stockton takes the win over Team Harris, eliminating Team Harris out of stones in that 8th end. So that'll be a 4-2 final for Team Stockton over Team Harris. And for Team Stockton, that means you are in that championship final going into this afternoon. And you will wait to see who you're playing in between Team Lima and Team Murray.
Yeah, Team Stratton headed into that final there, and that game was very close. It looked like Team Stratton's steals in 4, 5, and 6 made the difference in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that.
Tolerance? Can I go this way? That way? Yes. Just screw it. Okay. Guard, short guard.
So for Team Dobson, I like that you make the peel, Owen makes the peel, and you hit the open stone. Like, that's the whole reason why you're peeling that guard. And sometimes you can forget about those nibblers on the side of the rings.
I've had those nibblers bite me before.
Yes.
To say the least.
And I think it's happened to us all.
Mm-hmm.
For Team Stockton, I'd like to see a freeze here, because you need to score 2. That Yellowstone is your only guard, and I don't love the hit and roll. And for Dylan, he does. So he wants to play the hit and roll. And if you can hit and roll under the guard, or at least as close to the guard as possible.
Yep.
For Micah, that's a great shot. So let's see what happens. And Team Stockton proving me wrong by making a great hit and roll and opening that yellow on the other side of the rock. So that was kind of a 2-for-1 shot. And for Team Dobson, you need to remember the tolerance here. That yes, if we don't make shot A, which is hitting the open stone, let's make sure we peel the yellow in the middle. So this looks like it's going to be a big sweep by Matt. And to compliment Matt, his head's right over the broom. Great sweeping technique. And a great shot. We've seen 2 great shots. And in the 8th end, that's all you want to see. And now Dylan heard the earpiece. He's playing the freeze, and I love this call.
Yeah, I think this is a really timely call for Team Stockton right now. Kind of, they have that protection up front, and try to use those rocks they have in the house to their advantage.
A big sweep here by Cole. Head down the whole way. So with Micah's stone coming short of the rings, I like the guard call by Team Dobson here. Or the draw call by Team Dobson. Let's put a 3rd stone in the rings to make it as hard as possible for Dylan to get his deuce here. And for Team Stockton, it's going to have to be a skipper's deuce.
the sheet 5 scoreboard doesn't dictate what's going on. We have a bit of a technical difficulty. I gave the spiel while my thing was on mute, so I'll make it short. Right now, Team Alima sitting 3 behind a cluster of guards, leading 2, playing the 8th end. Team Murray does have hammer. It'll be interesting to see how that end shapes up, Sam.
And back to our sheet, Jacob, putting a 3rd yellow stone in there for Dylan Stockton to have to deal with. And for Team Stockton, this absolutely, the run back is the call. And I think they're discussing what weight they want to throw, what is our tolerance if there is a tolerance. And I kind of like, since you are running in your own blue, why not play they're not running in their own blue. Maybe,
no,
I'm going to stop talking about that shot.
But Sam, I think I like that shot. I think I like that tap. I think they might be throwing the tap, but just taking the ice from the tee line. Maybe trying to promote that blue stone forward into the pocket. I think you're right. Yeah, I think that's what, and I don't mind the lighter weight, considering that they have all of those yellow catchers in there. They just have to, it's a really huge team shot here for Team Stockton. If they can promote one of those into the rings, get it into the 4-foot, they'll be sitting good for potential 2.
I like the call of the tap, and this rock needs to move over. And I just think that was a well-thrown stone. I just think that just maybe we just took a little bit too much ice.
Yeah, I think so as well.
And if this doesn't stick around, it does. So we aren't going to see broom taps yet. I like that comment from Elias. We know this turn. We know that, yeah, we know where to put the broom.
Yeah.
So let's throw our normal weight, hit the broom, make the blue rock disappear, and let's get a win on the board for Team Dobson.
Yeah, let's throw what we know, and let's execute our last shot of this game. Like to see that.
And for Team Dobson fans watching, it's really nice to see the communication you hear on the ice. They really do sound like they're good friends out there, and same with Team Stockton. It's nice to see everyone just having fun and curling in these hard times of this pandemic that we're going through. So big shot here by Team Jacob Dobson, and a big sweep by Matt.
Yeah, they called Matt on early.
And clean is usually a good sign that they hit the stone out, and Team Dobson gets their first win of the weekend and gets to the consolation final. And for Team Stockton, they're not out. They get to play the consolation B final, yeah, against Team Hastings. And one sheet left on the ice, and it looks like the last rock being thrown on sheet 5. I'm not sure our cameras are going to be able to move all the way over to sheet 5, but it looks like they're playing a
triple, Sam.
Thin triple. It looks like they're going to want to get as close to those center guards as possible, make the triple, and I think it would be for the win if made. Because there is 2 blues that are sitting 4th and 5th. And if hit perfectly, I think this could be for 3.
All the coaches are eagerly awaiting Team Murray's skip to deliver this final stone. Really see what happens here.
Thanks to the camera crew for bringing at least that one side camera over.
Yeah, that
big shot here.
Oh, look at that.
Looks like it's running a little wider than they want. And a very difficult shot. As you see, he knows that one. And he got very close to those center guards. So you see Team Alima with the win over Team Murray. And you'll see Team Alima, Team Stratton final for our men's side. And that will be after our women's draw.
Sam, just quickly wrapping up here, what did you like out there on the ice today?
I just like to see this is the first Sunday. This is the first Sunday that these teams are playing, which means Sunday is our championship final. As you see Rob Matheson cleaning the stones.
Every game
it happens. It's really great to see. But back to the question that you asked me.
Yeah.
You like to see the level of execution higher on Sundays, and I think that's absolutely what we saw by the two teams on the ice in our game and all 8 teams. All the games, though some of the scoreboards show that the game wasn't close, it actually was, like we talked about. And we saw a lot of made shots across all 4 sheets this morning, and I think we're going to see something similar in the women's draw next.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what this next draw has for our broadcast and our viewers from home. I think that's all we have from Dundas Valley Golf and Curling Club. Nailed it. And we're looking forward to seeing you back shortly
At 11 a.m. for the women's semifinal games.
Yes, so
We'll see you then.
bye.
All the heart.